Daniella, hi. Welcome to the Female Startup Club podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. I've listened to so many episodes and I'm so inspired by all the women you interview. So I'm so flattered that you want to interview me.
Oh my gosh, that makes me feel so good. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be learning from you today and talking all things mental health, talking all things Wondermind. How's your day going so far? Have you had any wins or any oh shit moments that you want to unload?
Yeah. Is this the therapy session I get for free? So I'm in New York. I know that you're in Australia. We just talked about that, but it's 7:15 p.m. I just ran here from my office and I am honestly very, very tired, very drained. I stack my days like Monday through Friday and honestly the weekends as well, but not with meetings, just like doing stuff. But I like to stack my day and just like from 10 a.m. to like 7 or 8, no breaks or anything, just like meeting. And then maybe sometimes work time. So I feel like I just ran a sprint. Yeah, today had like a lot of emotions, just like overwhelming emotions. And, with any entrepreneur, there are ups and downs daily, and you get punched in the face at least 100 times. But I'm lucky enough to have 3 different businesses. So the Newsette, the company that I started when I was 19 as a sophomore in college, which is a daily email newsletter to empower women. Newland, which is also under the Newsette umbrella, which is a creative agency and PR and marketing and social media agency. We do huge things on TikTok. We have huge brands like Amazon and Mattel that work with us. And then lastly, Wondermind that you mentioned, where most of my time is going, which is a mental health ecosystem. I started with Mandy Teefee and Selena Gomez. So with those 3 combined, it's like so many more chances of being punched in the face every day and highs and lows. Something's going right with this company, but something's going wrong with this company. So I actually posted today that I was feeling like pretty low. And I like to be pretty vulnerable about that because oftentimes people can be so consumed or enamored by the headlines when in reality, that this is how I usually look after a long day, and it's not the pretty headshot that you'll see in Forbes.
Yeah, and I love that. I really respect, that you're able to show up in the world and speak that truth and be relatable, because we're all going through challenges. Whether you're in the 9 to 5, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a student, we're all dealing with our personal stress and anxiety and depression. And social media is it can be such a negative experience. I mean, it can also be so positive, but social media is tough. And so to be able to come on a channel and see someone like you opening up and talking and sharing is so refreshing and so needed. Grateful for that.
Well, thank you. I definitely got inspiration from my co-founders, Mandy and Selena. Selena, actually, before we ever even knew each other, when I was in college, she was like the first incredibly famous person, if not the most famous person in the world, to ever be honest and open about her mental health. And that was way before I was ever honest and open about my mental health. And that really inspired me. And so it sucks that it took me to get to a point where I achieved everything I had not even imagined for myself at, 26, 27, to finally be open about my OCD, ADHD, depression, etc. Because I felt like if I would have been open earlier, then maybe I would have, been seen as even less of a attractive investment for VCs or, other business deals. I'm not only, Latina woman and woman of color get like 0.4% of funding. I think that was last year's statistic, which is ridiculous. And women get like 4%. And so I didn't want to add, quotation marks crazy to that list. So I really kept it hidden, but it's a shame. And I'm not proud of the fact that I waited until I felt like I was kind of at a point where it wouldn't affect me, because truly people should see mental illness just like as if somebody has, lupus or, a heart problem or something like that. You would never not invest in somebody because they have some sort of, high blood pressure. So why does mental health, play a part into it?
Yeah. And, it's just so powerful what you're doing with Wondermind and what you're able to kind of bring to so many people around the world now. For you, for anyone actually who, is listening and might not 100% know about Wondermind yet or what it's all about, how do you like to describe what this business is?
Yeah, it's pretty multi-dimensional, but essentially Mandy Teefee, Selena Gomez, and myself came together and we said, we have varying skills among us. How can we use all of those superpowers to essentially change the world and make a big impact in the mental health space? And so essentially, we have an ecosystem with 3 prongs, media, production, and physical product, which is launching next year. But essentially, the mission and the thesis is to democratize mental health and introduce this concept called mental fitness, which is a way lower barrier to entry than, mental health. Whereas, even someone like me a few years ago wouldn't want to touch something that said mental health with a 10-foot pole, but mental fitness, that's like, just like you work out your body, you work out your mind. And so it feels like you don't have to have a diagnosed mental health disorder to be a part of it. You don't have to actually, everything that we offer from content to products coming is all merchandised by feeling. So even on our website, you can hit this button called Filter by Feels and filter the content by like, I feel sad, I feel lonely, etc. And so this is absolutely a place for anybody with feelings to not only learn more about, mental health and how to keep up their mental fitness daily from the best experts in the world that are usually, unreachable for normal people who can't spend, thousands of dollars an hour a session, but it's also, a really entertaining and just sexier, like Psychology Today or WebMD, where you actually feel like you can have, our website, our newsletter, our podcast, playing next to your friends or in your office, and you won't look like you're looking at a medicine journal. So really trying to make mental health accessible, so to democratize and destigmatize mental health.
I love that. And gosh, I love your website. You nailed it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a team effort.
Always a team effort. I just want to rewind quickly back to this, coming up with the idea and the inception of Wondermind and you kind of partnering with Selena and Mandy. How does that happen? How did you partner with Mandy and Selena on this? What's the light bulb moment? What's the conversation look like when you're sitting around being like, oh, here's the idea. Let's dig into that for a second. That's so cool.
Yeah, so everyone loves to ask this question because they're like, how did you get to Mandy Teefee and Selena Gomez? It's actually, I like to believe the word or the, phrase, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I truly believe that. And so truly just from sending an email newsletter every single day, writing it myself from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then doing all the other jobs and hiring people, etc. I think it was 5 years into it. It's almost the 8th year anniversary of the Newsette. I was able to, develop an incredible subscribership and following. And we had the opportunity to interview Mandy Teefee and Selena Gomez. And for those of you who don't know, they're actually mother-daughter, but Mandy Teefee is respected in her own right because she's an incredible producer and she's one of the minds behind 13 Reasons Why, which democratized and brought the word suicide and depression into millions of homes and really, brought forward the conversation about, mental health, especially for teenagers. It just it fueled that by so much. I don't think there's ever been a culture moment like that has fueled the growth and the conversation that much. And so I had the honor of interviewing them. So instead of one of my editors doing it, I asked if I could do it. And I think everyone was confused because at that point, 2 years ago, I wasn't really creating the newsletter content every single day, but I had secretly, been battling with mental health for since I was 6 years old, and the topic of the interview was mental health. And so I really wanted to be able to talk to these incredible women about it and see from my own eyes and ears, how vulnerable and brave they could be. And so we're all together, and they were so raw and real and open and honest with me that I basically, by the end of the interview, decided to tell them. They were like the fourth and fifth people I had ever told in my entire life that I had OCD. And I basically figured it out when I was like 6 years old, and that I had depression and ADHD. And I also, attempted suicide as a teen. And they were so, just welcoming and incredibly supportive that I felt like, everybody should feel this way. Everybody should feel like they don't have to be so scared to talk about their mental health, where they don't end up getting help or they don't end up talking to people and it ends up consuming them. And so we, on that call, were like, we need to do something that is bigger than all of us and that could hopefully save lives and change lives. And that's really where the conversation started.
Wow. That is so wild and so powerful to have that moment where you feel so supported that you can share, that then this ignites a new spark in you to do something on this huge global level. Wow. I'm just like, I didn't know that's how it happened. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was super organic. And I think the best things happen like that. So it was a lot of, luck and being able to, grow a media company, to be able to have people like Mandy Teefey and Selena Gomez to be interviewed. And then, for me to do the interview and feel so comfortable to share that. And we all kind of had this feeling at the same time that, like, why wouldn't we be doing something like this? This should be our legacy.
So it's pretty wild to me. I was reading about the news that it's valued at like $200 million or 200 and something $million. Wondermind is valued at $100 million. Firstly, love that for you. Crazy amazing. But secondly, and I know we've just touched on this a few minutes ago, I can imagine that it is just so much pressure and it takes a lot of mental strength. And like you were saying, you're stacked every day, you're busy, you've got a lot to deal with, you're being punched in the face a million times. What are some of your frameworks and coping mechanisms that you personally use when it comes to dealing with things like stress and anxiety and depression?
Basically, the Newsette, which, as I mentioned, is the Newsette newsletter, and then also our agency called Newland. That was basically a secret for the last 3 years because our first client was Amazon, and then they continued to they have so many divisions, hundreds of divisions. And so every division heard about the great work we were doing and they wanted to work with us. And so we essentially were just working with all Amazon groups. And then finally now we're working with other incredible companies like Mattel and et cetera. But both of those are so mission driven. So the Newsette started basically with the mission and thesis of trying to motivate and inspire women every single day by having a newsletter that talked about not only fashion, but tech, beauty, business, politics, and beyond, and then interviewed an inspiring woman every day. So it could be somebody like Diane von Furstenberg, who's my fairy godmother, that's what she calls herself, or Selena Gomez, or it could be a teacher in, the Midwest who's doing incredible things for her school. Just anybody that could really spark, inspiration, because sometimes you need that, especially in a toxic inbox, which most people have, whether you're a student or just in the workforce or just in general. And so that business was very different than building Wondermind, because I started in college. I had zero capital. Eventually, I convinced my parents to give me a $15,000 loan, which they made me sign a contract if I didn't pay it back within 3 years, that they would own 50% of my company. So it was definitely a shark loan, but they didn't want me to ever like they basically wanted me to work for it and not feel like the $15,000, even though it is in the grand scheme of things when people raise money so little, like they really wanted me to appreciate every cent. And I actually am really happy that I didn't have that much money starting out, because it really made me think about exactly what I want to do and not give me, you know, all of this money to play with. So I bootstrapped the business entirely, and I tried to raise money when I was 22 or 23 after college, and I got laughed out of every room. And so I own my entire company except for the small piece that I gave to my mother, who's an immigrant from Colombia and literally just never stopped believing in me, even when everyone else did. And maybe she should have stopped believing in me as well. And so that's the reason why, you know, I was recently named the youngest, wealthiest, diverse woman in the world with my net worth of 220 million, because I own so much of my original company, because I never got VC investing. And at the time when all these people were telling me no, and I was crying and, you know, thought that it was the end of the world, I would have never thought that it would actually be such a good thing. It definitely took a lot longer, but we were able to grow by 16,000% in the last 3 years, even during the pandemic, by just hustling. And, you know, instead of convincing 5 or 10 people on a cap table to invest in your company, you have to convince hundreds, if not thousands of people to buy ads in your newsletter or, you know, work with your agency. And so it is so hard. So I had that experience. And then with Wondermind, because of, you know, the backgrounds that each of us had as co-founders, we decided that we wanted to actually raise, and we put our own money in as well. And we were lucky enough to be able to come out with just an idea, and, you know, the three of us with $100 million valuation. And Serena Ventures led that. I'm an LP in Serena Ventures, and Serena Williams is an incredible person who really believes in our mission. And so we not only got, you know, investment from them, but also an incredible advocate and just, you know, so much knowledge in the space. And then we have other incredible people on our cap table. And so that is a very different kind of business where you have, you know, co-founders, but also investors. So it's been interesting to learn that, you know, how to walk in that kind of business. And it's been pretty easy to learn, because I've always treated my own business as if I had investors. You know, I just do everything I can to put the money, you know, back into the business and make it grow. And it's all about the business. And I think about myself last. And so it wasn't that hard of an adjustment. So yeah, because of the fact that I'm the CEO of all of those companies, or co-CEO of Wondermind, I have a lot of stress on my plate every single day. And I don't get the luxury of, you know, like batching my calls where it's like, okay, I'll do Newsette and Newland stuff these hours, and then I'll do a Wondermind stuff these hours. I just kind of have to, I just allow my, you know, team to book calls whenever, because I just want to make sure that we can run as fast as possible. And I don't want to have to wait a week to have a call that I'm excited about because it's convenient for me. So again, like I was saying in the beginning, I kind of run these sprints. 80% of my time is spent on Wondermind. And then I would say 20% is on, you know, the Newsette, mostly Newland. But I work, you know, like 120-hour weeks. I don't take a day off. And I actually loved working during the weekends because I can be at my own pace and I can do things that are, you know, maybe more creative, whereas the weekdays are more meeting heavy and, you know, more strategic, etc. To answer your question, because I know I just gave a TED talk, to answer your question, the way that I, you know, mentally reset or practice mental fitness myself is truly by seeing my therapists. So I have two. I have a therapist for my like regular life, just, you know, as somebody would be lucky enough to have one if they, you know, just had a therapist to talk to about relationships and, you know, problems and how to navigate life, etc. And then I have a therapist that is specifically for my OCD. And then I have a psychiatrist who I see every couple of months, who manages my medicine. And I am extremely lucky that I am in the position to be able to have all of this support and help. When I was in college, my parents never, ever I love my parents, and my mother's an immigrant from Colombia, like I said. So she has that culture. And my dad is like this manly man from Niagara Falls, New York, where it's like, you're always tough and you don't show weakness. And I was always kind of like a boy to him. I was a tomboy, and my identical twin sister was more like the princess. And so he's always, been a little tougher with me. And so both of my parents were mortified when I even asked, when I was maybe like 13 or 14, like, I think what I have is OCD. It's not like some weird quirk or whatever. Can I see a therapist? Like, that was not a thing in my town or, in society at that point, I guess, over 10 years ago. And so I was absolutely not allowed to see a therapist or a psychiatrist or anything. And medicine, oh my God, was out of the question because of the ignorance that they had against, the topic. And so I don't blame them. Again, it's like, there's so much stigma around it that it's almost, like you can't blame people for buying into that. And that's why it's so important to change the narrative. And so when I went to college and my OCD became debilitating, and I was in a point where I was going to be kicked out of college for basically having my business and, not doing as well as I wanted to in college. And literally one semester before I was going to graduate college, and I had zero revenue for Newsette. I had just focused all of my energy on just building the community and then building the business part after I graduated. And so I had a little bit of affiliate money, which means, if I, because it was me, myself, and I for the first 3 years, if I had something in the newsletter that someone would purchase, then I would get like 2% commission or whatever. And so I had a little tiny bit of savings there. And I used that to go behind my parents' back and go see a therapist and a psychiatrist that gave me medicine. So I know how expensive these things are. And I was so shocked and how few people take insurance and because I was doing it behind my parents' back. So I couldn't use insurance. And I realized even if I could, they didn't accept the insurance I had. So it was so expensive. And so, as a student with not any resources and having little money, that I'm making on the side, going all into this, I know personally how much of a financial, I guess, investment it is to have that kind of help. And so that's also why Wondermind is so important to myself and Selena and Mandy, is because we are truly trying to democratize the information and the voices of, the best therapists, psychiatrists, etc. in the world, to have all of the content that they contribute and that the tips and everything that they give us to always be free. So all of our media will always be free. Our newsletter, which is 3 times a week, obviously everything on our social channel, but then also our website, it's always going to be free because we believe everybody should be able to know more about mental health and mental fitness, not just the select few who can afford to get that kind of care.
100%. Gosh, isn't it crazy? The world has obviously changed so much in the last 10 years, and this conversation is really starting, and with businesses like Wondermind bringing this to the forefront, and people also, I think, becoming so much more open about struggles during the pandemic, and how we've the narrative is slowly starting to shift, and there is more, also research going into the space, also new options, new things like treatment through psychedelics and psilocybin and LSD and all these kind of things that are coming to the surface and aren't so taboo anymore, which I think is just amazing. Actually, something that I just started doing for my own small framework is in the morning I have cold showers, and it's something that it helps with my anxiety, it helps with my mood, it gets my blood going, and I just step out of that shower feeling like magic. And it's hard, obviously, but it's one of those small tips that I give myself in the morning to just make myself feel good. And it's so easy. Everyone can do it. And I just love it. I just wanted to say that.
That's crazy. I mean, I feel like a cold shower is almost like a punishment. So that good for you for making that
oh my God, you should try it. It's so good.
something that's rejuvenating and refreshing. I like hot showers. Like I really look forward to showers. I have a beautiful bathtub and, I always try to get into baths, but I just get so hot and like, I like being kind of cold and then hot. And so that's why showers are like, better for me. Like once it gets too hot, I'm just like, I need like a glass of ice or something to just pour on my face. But that's a really good tip. There are so many things. I mean, like, look, therapy isn't the only thing that I do. I also, I've learned, and I won't be a hypocrite. Like I'm still getting better at this, but I've learned to say no to some opportunities, even though they're very exciting, just because I will literally run myself into the ground. Last week, I had meetings in 3 different states within 48 hours. And so like, even though things sound exciting or, it's a big opportunity, I've had to say no to things recently just to prioritize myself. And also, sometimes, even though I work every weekend and I have to because I made the decision to have 3 companies, if, I'm not feeling the best or whatever, I'll take a break. I'll watch Project Runway, which is my favorite show. I've probably watched every season like 17 times. I'll take a nap. Those are things that I didn't allow myself to do because I thought it was so selfish of me to, have this incredible opportunity to touch so many lives and like, I'm going to go take a nap, but that's unhealthy. And that's like just reframing the mindset. And so I think any way that you can almost be a little selfish, if you said that you were going out with your friends one night, but you truly feel like you just need to breathe and you just need the night by yourself, like, your friends, if they're your friends, they'll understand. And hopefully they will also agree that nourishing yourself is better than, just making plans, because then you're not going to be strong enough maybe to make the next weekend's plans. And it's just this cycle that can, completely lead to burnout, etc. And so I would encourage people to be selfish sometimes about their own mental health.
Nourish your soul, focus on what's good for you and makes you feel good. I would love to shift gears a little bit here and talk about the business side of Wondermind. I love a good framework. I love a good blueprint. And I feel like for you, you've obviously scaled the Newsette to this huge company. I'd love to know what the kind of strategies that you're taking from the Newsette and taking that into Wondermind to grow it. And I read that in the first couple of months, you did 7 figures of revenue. You've scaled it really quickly. So I'm interested to see that kind of breakdown.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, I told you that Wondermind is made up of an ecosystem of media, production, and product. And so the 2 that have launched so far are media and production. So media being the newsletter and then now the website and obviously our social media channels, and then production being the podcast network that we are building. And so the first podcast to come out is my podcast called The Business of Feelings, where I interview the most successful people in the world, from, the founder of Bonobos to Rupi Kaur to, Serena Williams, about their mental health and what went on, in their mind when they were building their own empires, because business can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't just mean putting on a suit every day. So that's really exciting because, again, it normalizes, destigmatizes, because in the business world, the stigma is so high for mental health, and especially people with learning disabilities like ADHD, etc. And so just being able to kind of be like, well, these are the most successful people in the world and they have theirs too. And they're being open and honest about it. So maybe, you should reevaluate how you look at people who have these, feelings. And maybe you should, be open up to yourself if you have these feelings. So a lot of the framework for the media side, except for the podcast part, I had already done with the newsette, so especially the newsletter. And so I knew exactly, how I wanted the team to build it. I have an incredible editorial team led by this woman named Casey, who is our head of content, and she just had a vision for the content that I shared. And we obviously had growth strategies that, I had used for the newsette, and we just kind of went rocking and rolling, and we hit 100,000 subscribers in like the first month, and we were able to close a lot of brand deals. We have so many brands that come to us, but we're very, very picky on the brands that we partner with, because we only really want to partner with a handful of brands a month and make them really impactful activations. So we did something with Aerie, for instance, where we actually created custom content that was all about like loving your body and loving yourself and self-esteem, that was only available in Aerie stores nationwide and on our website. So it was really cool when you're able to partner with people and, fuel that business and make and monetize it the way that you have to, but also by, creating value for our consumers and our content readers, and hopefully, helping people in the process. Those are the kind of partnerships that really shine. And so those, building an audience and then also monetizing and already having relationships with some great brands that were our first sponsors really did was incredibly handy when we launched in April.
And when you talk about building community and actually getting started, what does that look like for you? What's that actual kind of strategy or practical tips to building a community from scratch?
It's so different. So I started two communities, Newsette and now Wondermind, and they have nothing to do with me, especially not Wondermind, but the Newsette. I was never the face of the Newsette. I literally pretended I was an intern at this cool company called the Newsette for 2 years in college so people would actually sign up. I would never want to tell people I was the founder because they'd be like, ew, I'm not going to subscribe to that. And so it wasn't like a blog or something like that. So in terms of building a community based on being a blogger or an influencer or, a spokesperson or an advocate, I really don't have a lot of experience in that. I'm so lucky that, people follow me and are really hopefully, I think they like, me being very vulnerable. And I think it's just honestly my responsibility that I can't have, these huge headlines and Forbes and, all these incredible publications without having right beside it, a picture of me ugly crying and being I, felt depressed today or whatever, being honest, because I would never want anyone to think, wow, she has it all and her life is perfect. I want to be raw and real. And I feel like it's a responsibility for anybody with any sort of platform or success to be real about you not skipping on rainbows every single day. And I think, Selena and what she just put out with her documentary really showcases that. So in terms of an influencer side, I really don't know about that. That would definitely be a question for Mandy or Selena. But in terms of building a community that's based on a brand, that's where I have expertise. So especially with the Newsette, it wasn't a person, it was the Newsette brand and the Newsette voice. And so I knew I wanted it to be cheeky and I wanted it to be friendly and, something that people would feel, comfortable, reading and not feel like we're talking down to them or anything like that. So building a persona around a brand. And then in terms of cultivating a community around that, it's truly finding something that people are very passionate about, whether it's female empowerment and just female rights and being a modern day woman who is not just, reading fashion magazines. You might read a fashion magazine, but you might pick up the New York Times right after, just that community of working on the go women or people who are busy. It's really easy when you have all of these readers who are coming to you for one thing, they all share so many values and so many, attributes that when you get them together in real life, which we've done a couple of times, it's crazy because they all feel like they really know each other. And the same thing with Wondermind, building a community around being open and honest and transparent and wanting to better yourself every single day through mental fitness. If you have something that is something that many people can get behind, and you feel like you can comment on a post on Instagram and not be embarrassed about the comment and actually have people like it and respond to you, etc., that's when you have built a community, truly. And so it's really special, the communities we've built for Newsette and for Wondermind, because it's this camaraderie and this sense that you are in this club that is not exclusive. Everyone belongs, but you feel like you are a part of something and that you are not alone, and that you have an incredible network around you that has your same belief system.
Gosh, I love that. It's basically being surrounded by like a big cozy hug.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What's your advice for anyone listening who is out there building a business and, maybe struggling with some kind of anxiety or depression or even just stress?
My advice would be to, one, not be ashamed. I mean, anybody who is starting a business, if you're not stressed, I don't know who you are. You must be Wonder Woman. It is a very stressful thing to do. And so, first of all, you are not alone. And you probably can find many people that are in your same, spot, whether they're your same age or, in the same location that you live in, or if you're in college, a group. So finding other people who are also struggling is really helpful. And to just get that verification, even just from me, that yes, like if you're stressed, if you are feeling very low and maybe highs and lows, etc., with building a business, that is very normal. If it's all high, truly, everything that goes up must come down. So it should be hard in the beginning. You should have to be patient. And I know patience is a virtue that I definitely did not learn and I do not practice, but you have to be patient. You have to, believe in yourself. So that's another thing. Every single person is going to tell you that your idea is stupid or that you should get a real job or whatever. I mean, and it might not be every single person, but a lot of people, and even people that you think might know everything. But I was told by every professor, the biggest investors in the world, that I would never amount to anything. And you are in charge of your own destiny. These people are not fortune tellers. If they knew everything, then, they would probably be living on a mountain somewhere in a castle because they won the lottery. So it's just like, I think take everything with a grain of salt, be open to feedback. And even when you get negative feedback, don't take it personally. Just use it as fuel for growth. That's the advice that I would give. And truly give yourself a break. Like, just because you launch something and it's not the biggest thing ever a year later. I mean, it took me 5 years to become, a multimillionaire, etc. Whereas, some businesses, they, make millionaires in 2 months because they're VC backed or whatever. But, sometimes the best things take the longest time to nurture and grow. And it makes you a better business leader because you really had to work hard for every single win.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I resonate with that so much. We're always, in a race, but it's often just with ourselves, and good things take time, and that's okay. And good things take iteration and pivots, and eventually you get closer to your goal and your North Star. So at the end of every episode, we ask a series of 6 quick questions. Some of it we might have covered, some of it we might not have, but we basically put this as a part 2 to the episode. So I ask them all the same. So question number 1 is, what's your why? Why do you wake up every day and build these 3 businesses?
It's because I truly thought that I was capable of nothing because of my OCD, ADHD, depression. I had no confidence. I was not good at anything. I was a bad student. I was literally the poster child for like what a failure looks like growing up. And I was able to do it just from sheer grit and survival mode. And so my mission in life is to prove to anybody, no matter what your background is, no matter what mental health issues you may have, learning disabilities, you don't have any connections. Like if I did it, you can do it too. And I felt so many times that it was the end, and that I should just give up and maybe even give up, living. And that would have been such a shame because I never would have imagined the person I grew into. And all it took was just believing in myself and truly just being so stubborn and being like, I refuse to have this be my legacy. I'll learn if I'm not smart, I'll learn, things. I'll learn how to do something and be really good at it. I don't have to be good at every subject in school or whatever it is. So that really is my why every day. In terms of the businesses for the Newsette and Newland, it's to, empower women every single day. And with Newland, to use, the biggest brands in the world's media budgets and, TikToks, et cetera, to increase representation and diversity and, do these incredible campaigns that actually change people's lives. And with Wondermind, it truly is to create a world where having a mental illness is just exactly the same as having a, physical illness. No one would ever blink twice if you went to the doctor and they said you have high blood pressure, you have to take this medicine. So why are people so judgmental? Even people in my family still, so judgmental that I have OCD and I have to take medicine every day. So that's my why. I really want to change the world because my world has been changed so much. And if I can save one life, then it would all be worth it.
I mean, I'm sure you have. You're changing the world. You are. You're in there. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Question number 2 is, what's been your favorite marketing moment so far? Can be across any of the businesses.
I guess I have 2. One's like really just like zero budget marketing moment. And the other one is, more recent. When I first started the Newsette in college, I had ambassador programs. So I would essentially reach out to people and be like, I'm this intern for this really cool company. If you want something to put on your resume, which everyone did, almost 10 years ago, all you have to do is refer, 10 friends. And then that turned into, if you refer 25 friends, you get a t-shirt or you get stickers or whatever. And so every morning after I was finished writing the Newsette, before classes, I would go to Staples with a huge pile of like those envelopes with the cushion of like all the stuff I was sending to ambassadors. And so, every person had a handwritten note and, it was just really cool. And like looking back, it really felt like I was building something and made me feel like I was literally just putting pen to paper in every single card and getting every single subscriber myself. And then, now something that would be a lot more, flashy, I guess, is we did this campaign about just being for Mental Health Awareness Month, about just being honest with your feelings. And we had posters all over New York and LA, and Selena and I posed in front of one of them. And we just had thousands of people, tagging us in those posts and truly, just painting the town, destigmatized.
That is so cool. Wow. What an amazing, thrilling moment. Both of those moments, they're so different and so kind of like telling of your journey from the start to where it is now, but both so special and profound in different ways.
Thank you.
Question number 3 is, what's your go-to business resource? Like if you're turning to a podcast or a newsletter or a book to learn something?
Honestly, podcasts like yours where there's interviews with incredible women and, other entrepreneurs who are just detailing, their lowest lows and how they got out of there and how they built these businesses. Those are always incredibly inspiring to me. Basically built my business, while learning everything about business and marketing, etc. So there were podcasts that I would listen to about like marketing and trying to get more emails and how to optimize your email list and all that stuff. But now I like to, read books about management. So, now I'll have like 100 people by the end of the year who report, technically to me. And so it's a lot different than having, 10 people or 5 people. And so just management books, how to become the best manager, how to, make myself feel accessible and try to be accessible to all of these incredible people that have, dedicated their days now to work for something that me and Selena and Mandy, dreamt up. How do I make them all feel special and heard and everything when I have so few hours in the day? Really those kind of materials.
Amazing. Love that. Wow. Hundreds a lot. Question number 4 is, how do you win the day? What are your AM or PM rituals and habits that keep you feeling happy and successful and motivated?
Honestly, I won't lie. I mean, sometimes I lose the day. Like, truly, even if I do something incredible and 16-year-old me would have died at like what I was able to do or whatever. It's just, unfortunately, especially with 3 businesses, there's just always something next. Like, it's never just like, I made it and it's all great. And again, I chose this for myself. So I absolutely am not complaining. And that's why I, work so hard, because I want to do as much as I possibly can. But there are very few days where I feel like I won the day because I'm hard on myself. But I guess when I feel like I truly won the day, it's when I am at peace with the fact that I didn't do everything that I knew I needed to do, that I gave myself time to re-nourish myself, and that I spent time with people I love. And sometimes that can be a losing day because I feel like I didn't do enough. But truly, those days are when I feel like when I can go to sleep and I can think about all of the things that I didn't do and be okay with it, because it was worth it to, have the memories and the connections with, people I love, or doing whatever I did instead.
100%. Question number 5 is, what's been your worst money mistake in business and how much did it cost you?
I think probably in the early days of the Newsette, I'm so careful now, even though we have a lot more money to play with, we just, because I never had the luxury of just getting a huge check until, Newsette was successful. Every single penny I look at as, how are we maximizing this? And so I think the biggest money mistake I've ever made was probably not firing somebody fast enough that I knew was not working out. And it probably cost me about like $100,000 in terms of the salary, but also like the opportunity cost of having someone who was going to be efficient. It could have been, much more than that in terms of opportunity cost, but in from salary, and also finding someone to replace them and the time it took, whatever, I think it was probably around $100,000 or more.
Yeah, that's come up on the show quite a lot when it's, not getting people out of the business fast enough and trusting that instinct that you needed to let someone go. Last question. Question number 6. What is just a crazy story you can share, good or bad, from the journey of building these businesses?
I guess I'll say a bad one. One story that I like to tell people, because again, you can feel like such a failure as an entrepreneur, as a person who works hard and just has a dream. When I was 23 and I was trying to raise capital for the Newsette, I had a meeting with the owner and the head honcho of one of the biggest VC firms, and he's very well known and old and just like the creme of the creme. And I was so excited to have my meeting with him, and I basically did my pitch and then was like, any questions? And he looked at me and just started laughing. And I was like, what's so funny? And he goes, you remind me so much of my granddaughter. And I was like, oh, well, your granddaughter must be like really smart and like a great entrepreneur. And he was like, and his whole face just dropped. And he was like, no, my granddaughter has no idea what she's talking about, talks way too fast, and is not successful. And I was just like, and like right to my face. Yeah. And it was like a moment where it was like, okay. And I just like packed up my stuff and left. And I got into the Uber and I just bursted into tears. I refused to spend one more second trying to raise money from people like this instead of just growing my business. And it was the best decision I ever made. But at the moment I felt, this person was the authority on, who's going to be successful, who's not. And in the moment I felt completely crushed, but it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Yeah, God, so disappointing. So disappointing that people, act and treat others like this, especially when you're coming from a place of authority and like people look up to people like that. But thank God for the silver lining. Love that for you. That'll show them.
Whenever you feel like something is so wrong and it's the end, it could honestly be the best thing that's ever happened to you. I like to say, everything happens for a reason.
100%. Daniella, this was so cool. I'm so grateful that you came on the show and shared so openly and so vulnerably. I'm so grateful. I love what you're doing and I'm excited to see it grow.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be part of the incredible collective of women that you've interviewed. And just thank you so much for your time.